Reading from the 11th chapter of the Gospel of John. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. Jesus said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave. A stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he's been dead for 4 days." But Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" And so they took away the stone. Jesus looked up toward heaven and said, "Father, I thank you, for you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And the dead man came out, his hands and his feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Lazarus was a friend of Jesus and was the brother of 2 people who were close followers of Jesus, Mary and Martha. And when Lazarus died and Jesus showed up, Jesus already knew what he was going to do. He knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, and that Lazarus would once again be alive, and yet Jesus wept. Jesus was greatly disturbed because he saw the pain and felt the pain himself of this death, this separation, this sadness, this grief that Mary and Martha and all of those who were with them were feeling. This is who our God is. Jesus is God in human form, and when Jesus sees pain, when Jesus sees your pain, when Jesus sees your grief, Jesus knows that in the end, love is going to win, and that you will be renewed by God's grace, that you will be given new life, that you will make it through because Jesus will help you through it. Jesus knows that. And yet, Jesus sees how you are feeling, greatly disturbed that you may be, and is himself greatly disturbed. Jesus cares about you to the point where Jesus himself, even though he knows the outcome of your situation, weeps with you, cries with you, is greatly disturbed with you, and sits with you in the midst of those feelings. Jesus does this for all of us. And so in the same way that Jesus is greatly disturbed when you are suffering and in pain, Jesus is also greatly disturbed when our brothers and sisters of color are in pain and are being oppressed. And Jesus weeps with them too. And at the end of the story, Jesus calls Lazarus out from the dead, and then instructs the disciples, the people who are there, to unbind him and let him go. Those things that cause us pain, those things that cause us death, whether that's our actual physical death or some other kind of experience of death or darkness, whatever those things are, they bind us. Oftentimes, they constrict us. They limit our emotion, they limit our freedom. And at the end of the day, Jesus comes, and through his cross and resurrection, Jesus unbinds you from those things, whatever it is that holds you bound. And as people who follow Jesus, it is our work also to help unbind others who are bound. Whether that's people who are bound by stereotypes or people who are bound by racially unjust systems, whether it's people who are bound by political opinion. Jesus comes to unbind us and set us free and calls us through love to unbind our brothers and sisters from whatever it is they are bound to. So, brothers and sisters, in the midst of this time where all of us are feeling things that are different, whatever it is that might hold you bound, Jesus sees it. Jesus sits with you in the midst of that situation, whatever it is you are feeling. And ultimately, Jesus unbinds us and sends us to share that unbinding love with everyone else who needs it in the same way that we do. As we go to do that work, to unbind those who are bound, may the peace of God, which surpasses all human understanding, keep and guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.